this is the third in the set of videos on embroidery stitches for crazy quilters. And this is going to be chain stitch. So you're going to come up out of the fabric. Again, I have an away waist knot, which means I put a knot some distance away from where I'm stitching. Waist knot just means we're going to cut it off and waste that amount of thread. And I'm going to put my needle back down in, basically in the same place I came up, and come up a little ways forward from it. So you can see I've taken a small stitch there. You're going to thread this thread underneath and pull it through. And now you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to take this to the side, put your needle back in where you brought it up, take a small stitch, make sure this goes under your needle, and pull your needle through. And the shorter your stitch, the fatter, relatively speaking, your chain stitch is. So I'm going to try to do a little bit shorter stitch there. And you'll see that the chain stitch is a little bit fatter than the other two. And we'll do that again. Again, you're going to put your thread in, your needle back down in basically the same hole that the thread came up from. And you're going to pull this thread underneath your needle and pull through. Same thing again. Needle goes back in where it came up. Take a short stitch forward. Take your thread around and bring it back up. All right, another one. Now, again, this is a foundation stitch for a lot of other things. A single one of these is called a lazy daisy, and you tack it down by putting a stitch like this in there. I'll show you that when I get to the end of what I'm doing. Now, there is a stitch called the twisted chain stitch, which is a variation. And let's see if I can remember how to do it. This is coming from this side of your needle and twisting over and back down. So that's a twisted chain stitch. So we're going to pull this out here, put my needle through. This comes from here, from this side of the needle, goes around like that and comes back over. No. All right, more chain stitch. I'll have to look up the twisted. Now, at the end of your row of chain stitch, you're going to just bring your thread back over and just put it down through. And you get a little stitch at the end there. So now what I'm going to do in these others is I'm going to do lazy daisy stitches to make a little flower. So here's the single chain stitch. This is probably the very first embroidery stitch I ever learned. I think I was about 5 years old when I first did this. Okay, that's called a lazy daisy or detached chain stitch. Bring up another one. To make the next petal. Another one. Make another petal here. Another one to make another petal. turn my work here because that makes it easier to do. And why not make life easy on yourself? And we'll get 2 more petals in there. I don't know why that thread's coming up through there, but we can pull that out. And another lazy daisy petal. And 1 more. And you can do a whole line of those little flowers across the seam line. If you want to make it a little fancier, you can take the French knot that was in number 2 of this series and put a French knot in the center to make, in another color, to make the center of the flower. So that's chain stitch and lazy daisy stitch. Again, this is a foundation stitch that can be used for a lot of different things. There are lots of variations. There's things where you whip other colors through. There's a twisted chain stitch, etc. So this is another foundational, and there's all kinds of things that you can do with the lazy daisies, as they're called, or detached chain stitch. Okay, here are the 2 flowers with the lazy daisies with a French knot in, and over here what I'm doing is threading another color of floss through the chain stitches. And I really would be better with a tapestry needle that didn't have a point, but I don't have one handy and I wanted to finish this. So all I'm doing now after I came up is I'm going under the chain stitches with the new thread. So I'm not going through the fabric, I'm just going under those chain stitches with the new thread. So you could put one color one direction and another color the other direction. You could just go one direction with a color. You could weave one direction and then weave the same color back the other direction and catch the other side. It's up to you how, you know, it's your quilt. It's up to you how you want to work with it. And there I'm having trouble. This is why it's good to have a tapestry needle, because I'm having trouble getting my needles going through the fabric. There we go. A tapestry needle doesn't have a sharp point. Embroidery needles, crewel needles, and darners all have a sharp point on them. So I could go back through the other direction and weave these back the other way, like this. I'm not going to do much of it, but I will do a couple. So that again, you get it on both sides of the chain stitch, and it makes a different pattern. And it can be pretty depending on the colors that you're using. So let me go through one more. And then I'm going to go to the back and finish off. So chain stitch, lazy daisies or detached chain stitch, just a single chain, French knots in the center of the flowers, and chain stitch with another color woven through it. Again, some stitches for you to use with your crazy.